Hi there, Barbara Menino here. And I was listening to a reel recently. It was recorded from the Graham Norton show, um, something that comes up into my Facebook a lot, and I've kind of enjoyed watching. It's really funny. And on this particular night, one of the celebrity guests was Ryan Reynolds. I rather like Ryan Reynolds. I've seen him in a lot of movies, but I've never really seen him talk extemporaneously. And he was really quite a hoot on this talk show. He's from Canada, and he was talking about the accents of all Canadians. And he told a story of the time he and his wife, um, whom he called a foodie, um, traveled across the border, the United States Canadian border, to Vancouver to buy pies of all things. She liked these pies from this place in Vancouver, and they piled them all in the car and they were driving back to the States. And apparently, you cannot legally or comfortably, one or the other, transport fruit and vegetables without declaring them. And when they got to the border, they were stopped. And the immigration official apparently noticed Ryan Reynolds and realized he was somebody famous and sensed something was awry and asked if they had any fruit and vegetables in the car. And Ryan responded, no, in a high voice, because he claims that when he's ever caught in a lie, large or small, his voice goes up an octave or two, and it's a dead giveaway. And as a result of the giveaway, the border guard made him sing a song from one of his movies and got Ryan back and sent him on his way across the border, but not without paying somewhat. I thought the story was really funny. The way he told it, it was tremendously engaging. But the other thing about it was that it was something I could really relate to because Ryan, in my mind, was talking about what I call the small voice syndrome. That's the syndrome that kicks in when, well, in Ryan's case, he was lying, but mostly when you get nervous or stressed, your voice goes up a couple of octaves, and it's a dead giveaway that you're not at your best self. Well, in my past life or in the past, I have been a victim of the small voice syndrome. And I do remember many a time when I was put on the spot, again, not about lying, if that makes me feel better to say, um, but in a situation that was uncomfortable and my voice skyrocketed up. I realized this trait in myself, and I decided that I had to make a conscious effort to prevent this from happening and to continue to talk, whether a situation was stressful, whether I was anxious or not, in a level tone of voice, because that firmness shows credibility, authority, a comfortable in your own skin um, kind of presence. So I worked at it. And I have to say, it was hard, Bert. But then it's always hard before it gets easy. And gets easy, it actually does. And it did with me. Because after a time of making a conscious effort, at some point in that process, I began studying speaking because I love to speak publicly. And I began studying story, as I've told you before, because my work is to write stories. And as a result of that study pursuit, I became not only a student of speaking and story, um, but I started to look at my life and my work through a lens of story. And what a difference that made, because it encouraged me to develop my curiosity and think deep and back far and find interesting stories. And the more I thought about them, those stories kind of got to lessons or proof points about one thing or another, typically in my business, but oftentimes about life. And the more I looked at life through the lens of story, the more curious I was, the more I found the stories, the more I talked them through to myself or shared that with others, the less and less did I find instances when I reverted to small voice syndrome. In fact, after a while, the voice became so natural that small voice syndrome really never occurred again. My husband mentioned that to me recently, and so did my son. And so I guess that would kind of speak to the point that it's always hard before it's easy. But I worked at it so much so that it became natural, instinctive, and part of who I am. And I have to tell you that looking at life through the lens of story, I think it helped me come of age. Even now, come of age. It's never too late. So if you have had trouble speaking naturally, speaking out, if you worry about getting seen and heard, I suggest that you try looking at life and or your work through the lens of story and find some stories that make you laugh, that make you cry, that show lessons, and even as importantly, make you proud of yourself. No one should not be seen or heard now in this day of the attention economy when everything is digital, now more than ever. It's imperative that we all have presence so that we can create impact online, in person, and on stage. And at first, it may seem hard, but if you keep practicing and if you try what I suggest, looking at things, life, and work through the lens of story, you might find that you can also prove the point that it's hard before it's easy. Is that something you'd like to talk about? Improving your ways of communicating so that you are comfortable in your own skin, that you speak with a level voice that projects presence and authority and credibility, and that you refrain from reverting to Ryan Reynolds and Barbara Menino's previous small voice syndrome, and you speak out loud and clear. Until next time, thanks for watching.